We use magnets for our models. Why not for our terrain?
Spiking bits.
If you love terrain, you are not going to want to miss Archon Studios' upcoming Kickstarter that features magnetized modular terrain that can be configured and reconfigured as often as you want. So Rampart is the magnetized modular terrain Kickstarter for the tabletop. You can see here, this is a draft. You can go over here, we'll put the link below, and get notified before it's launched. Now they are asking for feedback. I actually gave them some feedback. I'm going to give them some more feedback from this prototypes we have here, but I needed to get something recorded in the books, so to speak. But you can see there is a lot of comments already on here, and you can click here and say notify me on launch, so you know when they go live in case you forget about it. It's only up for, I guess, 21 days, so 3 weeks there in case you forget. It looks like it's going to start on the 13th of November. Now, all that aside, let's talk about the project. So we're going to show you more of this, so I'm not going to play the video, but here's the deal. It's a Kickstarter for injection molded, high quality plastic terrain that can be magnetized and torn apart and put back together as many times as you want, which I think is pretty dope, because that's kind of where the Games Workshop kits are lacking. You always see them and you're like, okay, well, I can pull this peg out and I can pull this peg out, and then, oh man, if I do this too many times, this piece of plastic is going to snap. And I think we've all kind of been there on the G-Dub terrain. Even though they're getting better at designing it, they're not quite there at this level, even in the prototype mode. So I'm super stoked to see this. Now you can check out the sprues. It looks like it's going to be about 6 inches here for the double-sided stuff, and then there's some smaller areas here. Now what I really like about this, there's 2 different styles of wall sections here. You've got open with windows, and then you've got closed right here. So say you play a particular tournament setting or tournament style, you can have all of these on the bottom be closed if you want, or whatever you want to do. The magnet system is pretty ingenious. They say here it's a 4 by 2 millimeter round magnet. I'm going to tell you what this is in standard size. We unfortunately didn't have something this long, so we kind of did it hard mode, and we're going to magnetize just the discs on each end and do about double the work. But if you can get a cylinder, that seems like a way smarter way to go about magnetizing these, is just pushing the cylinder in with a little bit of glue and letting it dry, and I'll give you those measurements here in a second as well. But you can kind of see how it works. I'm going to show you the practicality of it because there's little pieces you have to glue in. But here's the other thing that I really like. Customize your terrain. So if you want it more fantasy style, you don't have to glue on all of these pieces. As you can see right here, you can keep it plain, or you can spruce it up and make it semi-sci-fi if you want, and there you go. Now, if you also want something for more on the fantasy side of things, well, they got you covered there too. They have a whole section of ruins, which we don't have to show you, unfortunately, but that being said, it just keeps going on. There's ruin sections, there's straight sections, there's doorway sections, yada, yada, yada. They got it covered. Now, here is where it starts. And this is all I know because it's the only thing on this page that haven't showed anything yet. So right now, for $49 US, it looks like you can get quite a bit of this terrain right here. You can get 8 total long 6-inch sections. It looks like they are 4 closed, 4 open. Sets of the ruined sections right here, which I can't tell if they're connected, but the pieces I have are not connected here in the middle, so I'm assuming those are not connected in the middle. So that's 8 corner edges right there, and then 5 pieces of the larger one that's busted down the middle, and then all of the columns to go on the ends to make the modular pieces of the gantry right here, which is going to end up being your floor, and then these little plugs, which I'm about to show you what those are for. Back to the assembly mode. Now, like I said, we are hard mode here. We don't have the proper size, the proper length of magnets. We have the proper size of magnets right here to work in these holes. But if I was going to do this, I would get cylinder magnets to go all the way through and only have one thing to glue in instead of one on each end. That seems kind of stupid. You're not always going to want to glue both parts, and you're about to see right here why. So you're going to leave some open as well. Now, Truth be told, when we start messing with this, it's not going to line up quite right because this is resin material. So just keep that in mind, that it might look a little wonky and it is a little bent because, you know, heat needs to be applied, and it's got a little bit more weight to it because, again, it's resin. It's not injection molded plastic, which generally is a lot lighter. So first up, here is the assembly process. So there's these little adapters right here that you're going to glue in to this spot in order to socket your magnet in right here. Of course, I needed to apply some heat to that because it isn't going to line up quite right. So there is a little bit of hobbying to be done. And like I said, when it comes to this resin, it wasn't always going to work out quite right. And I already knew that going into it. Over here, this is a little bit different because what you're going to want to do is glue this piece onto here, and then this piece over here is actually going to be a column section, and this is how they make it so modular. So again, it's resin, it's not going to line up right. It's going to take a little bit extra hobbying on my part to make this look right for you all, as you can see right there. So we're going to have to go and get out the heat gun and do some stuff, and I'll show you more of the magnet measurements, because you're not going to want to do this, even though I am hobby hard mode right now to make this work. Okay, so we got everything locked in here. Actually, that's not the right one. We did a bunch of them. This was the one we started with. So here it is, all locked in, and you can see we were able to mostly line it all up. We put a magnet right here on the end, and we got that little socket piece in there just fine. And what that's going to do is allow us to be modular on the corner if we want, and boom, like that. Now, you will need some single magnets to socket in here, because depending on how you want to configure your stuff, you're going to want to leave some of these spaces open. Now let's talk about size of magnets. These are 3/16 of an inch, which you can see right here. So it's bigger than an eighth, but smaller than a quarter. And that is whatever it is in metric right there. I think it's about, well, it's less than 1 centimeter, way less than 1 centimeter. But you can see the measurement right above right there. Like I said, I don't know the metric system. I can't really compare it right there. Now, if you're gonna wanna get the larger ones, you're gonna want a 3/4 inch magnet to go all the way through it. It looks like about right there. And that's gonna be, that's 2 centimeters, and going on up from there, it's gonna be a little bigger than 2 centimeters if you're getting the metric right there. So I'll leave that right there so you can kind of see. Now, there definitely is a strategy on how you're going to put your magnets in here, but let me show you some of the features real quick. So you can glue one end in, so you can perhaps attach another section like this, right? Or you can flip it around and have an opening so that you are continuing the wall, something like that. And then you also have the opportunity to put in some floors. Now the floors, I'm kind of miffed about. I'm not miffed about. I just don't think they were designed quite right, and I've already communicated that to Archon Studios. Oops, that one isn't going to go there. I've already communicated that to Archon Studios, and here's the reason why. Because when you put these little slots, these little pieces in, and I like the design of this. I think this is great, and they lock in just fine. Remember, this is resin, so it's not going to be 100%, and it's going to be a little bit heavier than what it should be. But these are the floor sections, and my first thought was there should be more weathering along this corner right here, which is true. And they were like, yeah, that's probably a thing. I'm like, okay. So then you'll notice too that they're a little bit shorter than they should be. Like this is supposed to go right here and go over that section. They should probably have some weathering back here, which again, they were like, yeah, okay, that's a thing. But the problem that I noticed too was there was no corner support. So say you want to do something like this and put a corner piece in here, it's really hard to kind of configure it in. Even though there's a little notch right there, there needs to be some support over the flooring section. So I'm not going to tell you that everything is 100% unflawed at the moment with it, but I do like that they have a lot of options here for where these pieces slot into things, and that they've seemed to have pretty much planned ahead for all of that, which I think is pretty neat. To be honest, if I can only find one small flaw in a system, I think the prototype is pretty good. I do like how they differentiate between the tops and the bottoms and the things there as far as how to attach these together. And then you can do different things like have your flooring sections here locked together, or there is, which pretty sturdy, I'll be honest. It's definitely sturdy. Remember, it's going to be a little wonky because it's resin. It's not 100% straight and plumb, but it stands up on its own for the most part. And once you start building it, it actually gets kind of addictingly fun. Now, there are some different ways that you're going to want to attach these here, depending on what you want to do. Like, say you want to put something right there, then you just want to be super careful, and hopefully maybe I can get them to listen to maybe perhaps a guide. Like, oh, so there's a blank section too, like I was talking about. So there's the blank section. So if you want to do like a little ruin area right there and just have it kind of tapering off, you can. And then there is the double section right here, which works just the same as this section here. So you can leave some open, you can leave some closed. You can string these together if you want. You can do something like that. And then, of course, they have their own piece right here as well that you can attach things to. And then you can just kind of keep building as you go along the way. And like I said, the floors would normally attach on here, but we know that they're kind of not the best right now. So I'm going to circle back to that and just kind of hope that they take my notes on that and kind of take it from there. And then you can put in all those sections and things, and there's a doorway. And last but certainly not least is, say you do kind of have some of those open sections right there, and sometimes it may pay to do it because you can push those all the way through when you get those 3/4 inch magnets all the way through, right? Well, now say you want to cover those up. Well, you have these little socket pieces here, little lanterns, and then there's a little torch for the fantasy ones. And they come with a whole bunch of those that you saw at the bottom of the picture there in the Kickstarter. And last but certainly not least, if you want to spruce up your terrain, well, then they have all of those panels that you saw. So you can put some sci-fi panels on here if you want. Underneath, you can glue them all on. You got piping, you got all sorts of things. You can put these bullets or these rounds right there in the little window sills, and you can even in some cases, I think is it this one? There might be, oh yeah, here it is. So in some cases you can string that around up there too on some of the inside pieces. And then some of these too, you can just kind of put wherever. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. And remember, the whole point of this Kickstarter is to make this in plastic. Once it's in plastic, I think it's going to be good to go. Very strong, very sturdy. And once they work out the little bugs, the one and only bug I could figure out, they already have the really good tolerances here, and they already made ideas, that it locks in right there, and they've made the areas right there for the column. I think once they get that under their belt, and as long as they have a good option for shipping on this Kickstarter, I think it's a winner. So make sure you check out Rampart's Modular Magnetized Kickstarter when it's live. Check it out, see what they've got, see what they've come up with, and make sure you check the shipping. And then be sure to pledge this one, folks.
Spiking bits.